It's Ramsey Dewey over here in Shanghai, China. Let's talk about self-defense. I recently put out a poll where I asked this question, true or false? Self-defense instructors are power fantasy enablers. And the overwhelming majority of you who voted marked true. And I absolutely agree with that assertion. But I got a few comments saying, hey Ramsey, you're a self-defense instructor. Well, surprise, no I'm not. Nor have I ever once claimed to be. But Ramsey, don't you teach martial arts and coach combat sports and MMA and all that stuff? Isn't that self-defense? Well, surprise, no. No, it's not. It's the polar opposite of self-defense. So what is self-defense? What is a self-defense instructor? What is the self-defense industry? And what's the difference between those things? Well, number one, self-defense, what it is and what it isn't. Self-defense is a legal term. It is a legal term to justify violent action that would otherwise be illegal. So, for example, in most countries that have self-defense laws, if somebody breaks the law and does something illegal to harm you, it is generally justifiable to use certain violent actions to stop said assault and battery from taking place. But again, self-defense is a legal term. Self-defense takes place in the courtroom. Violence takes place on the streets. Self-defense takes place in the courtroom. That is your legal justification for the violent action that took place. That is you trying to get off the hook. What is a self-defense instructor and what is a self-defense industry? The self-defense industry, in my opinion, that is just pure evil. Yeah, pure evil. I said it and I stick by that. The self-defense industry preys upon fear. They are the fear-mongering industry. They try to make you afraid of bad guys and boogeymen jumping out of the shadows to get you. And the only solution, of course, is their program, their teaching, their gurus, their books, their DVDs, whatever it is they're trying to sell you. And that's the solution to the fear that they have peddled to you. And that's pure evil, that's silly, that's nonsense. Self-defense instructors tend to fall into two categories, the overwhelming majority, the peddlers of the self-defense industry, the fearmongers, and the well-intentioned ones who generally give you pretty solid advice, such as don't go down into the dark alley, stay away from danger, remove yourself from violent situations, and if push comes to shove, use superior violent methods to defend yourself instead of wimpy violence, or something along those lines, but then we run into a bunch of gray areas. It still feeds back into the fear-mongering industry, because without fear, those people are out of a job. Without the irrational fear of the disproportionate amount of violence on the streets that exists in our minds versus what exists in reality, those people are out of a job. So I said before, I'm not a self-defense instructor. I'm a mixed martial arts coach. I'm a combat sports coach. That is the polar opposite of actual self-defense. So as I mentioned before, the well-intentioned self-defense instructors are the ones who tell you essentially remove yourself from the danger. And that's generally the best self-defense. Whenever possible, when confronted by something dangerous, get away from that dangerous thing, and then you will not get harmed. But what's combat sports? You lock two fighters in a cage, and you reward the one who goes toward the danger, becomes the danger, and inflicts damage on the other person. A combat sport is a moment where violence becomes legally sanctioned. Where everything within a very specific rule set becomes legally sanctioned. Things that would result in jail time otherwise. Assault and battery. aggravated assault, and so on, depending on how you define those terms wherever you live. If you walk out on the streets and you punch a stranger in the face, what happens? That's a crime. If you get into a boxing match and you punch the other guy in the face, bravo, that's your job. That's what you're supposed to do. If you get into a cage fight, an MMA fight, and the other guy starts coming toward you, and you run away from him, and you try to climb over the cage to get out of there and get away from the danger, guess what happens? You get disqualified from that fight, because running away, timidity, and climbing over the cage to escape are all fouls. That's all illegal in a cage fight. Did you know that? Well, if not, surprise. Self-defense and combat sports are the polar opposite. So what do I teach people? I teach people how to win fights. How to win fights in the context of combat sports. Go toward the danger and be the danger. If you do that out in the civilian world, that is not self-defense. That is aggravated assault. Don't do that, friends, except in legally sanctioned combat sports events. Again, self-defense, combat sports, polar opposite things. I am not a self-defense instructor. Please don't make that mistake again. Thank you for watching. Now get out there and train.